Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Everyone able to listen me?
Yeah, we can.
Hi Akhil sir. Very good evening. Hi Dr. Sunil sir. Very good evening. Ravi sir. Very good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
One more panelist is yet to be joined, sir. I'm just waiting for that person.
Okay.
So that he will join. So I welcome all the audience in this higher and technical education virtual conclave. It's a day-long conference, and we have discussed various topics, various aspects of higher education in this COVID times. We have shared the best practices and the challenges that we are facing current right now in terms of academics, in terms of students, in terms of faculty. We have shared all the basic dimensions that right now all the key stakeholders are working on the higher education domain right now. So here we have the showstopper panel we have. This is the panel which we have the key stakeholder from the higher education who are taking the decision on the day-to-day types. They are deciding the policies for the higher education. Students, faculty are interacting them. So we start with the basic introduction. Right now we have Dr. Akhil Sahani, Managing Director, the Sahani Group, live from Maharashtra. Welcome back, Dr. Akhil Sahani, sir. Welcome very much. We have Dr. Sunil Shukla, Director General, Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India. He is directly live from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Welcome, Dr. Sunil Shukla. We have Dr. Ravi Joshi, Director, Planning and Development, JSPM. He is live from Pune, Maharashtra. Welcome, Dr. Ravi Joshi, sir. Welcome to the High and Technical Education Virtual Conclave.
Thank you.
And we can as soon, I think Sally ma'am has joined right now. So just we can wait for that. Sally ma'am should join. So we can start the panel with the discussion. The topic is very nice. Hi Sally ma'am. Hi Dr. Sally ma'am. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I'm able to hear you. I hope you are also able to hear me.
Yes. I think we are getting two names for the Dolly and Dr. Sally.
Is it? Okay. One second.
Sameer, you have to change your name in the.
You sent it for her.
Oh,
Deepak will change.
I
Deepak,
was.
can you help me out, Dr.
doing.
Sameer? He can change his
Yes, we are
class
doing.
name.
Yes, we are doing.
Rankan, namaskar.
Yeah,
Nice to
namaskar.
media.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How are you? After a long time.
Fine. Nice to see you here.
Same here, sir. Feeling very nice to see you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Joshi.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening.
How are you? Nice.
Thank you very much for joining us, and Dr. Sally.
Yes, sir.
Vice Chancellor D.Y. Patil University. She is live from the Maharashtra right now.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank
we
you.
have Sameer S. Sahasrabudhe, Director EMRC Pune. He is also live from the Pune, Maharashtra right now. So
Yeah,
we can start.
Currently, I'm from Mumbai, although I'm supposed to be in Pune, but I am live from Mumbai right now.
Okay, you're live from the Mumbai. Thank you for updating, sir. So we can start the session. So the topic is new vision for higher education in large, well-resourced, multidisciplinary institutes. So I can start with Dr. Akhil Sahani, sir, that the things have been changed right now. The students and teachers that are navigating lives before March has totally changed. Right now, faculty has to be face the new challenges. They have to upgrade their skills. So, what the basic challenges, Dr. Akhil sir, you are seeing the major challenges right now, and what are the outcomes in the future? How the behavior changes will be started in the student and the faculty. So, just 3-minute views for that, Akhil sir.
Okay, fair enough. So I think I know that a lot of what I'm going to say may have already been covered in earlier parts of this conference. But of course, one thing we do have to be aware of is that this is the largest social experiment that's ever happened in terms of where the whole world is locked down and you have almost 3 billion students who are at home looking at, not just in India, but even in other countries of the world, Brazil, US and all, who actually are moving away from a classroom-based model to an online-based education model. More importantly, you have faculty who've been teaching in a certain manner through face-to-face chalk and talk lecture methods. adapting themselves to an online model using Zoom or Google Meets or other online platforms to actually start teaching and changing the way that they work. Now, of course, there's no question that people have done this quite well, especially those in schools and colleges where there is a strong internet connectivity. So obviously, if you're an urban resident and you've got a good data connector, you're fine that way. But of course, it gets more difficult if you are, let's say, from a lower part of society, or you're rural, or you're not able to sort of connect. That, of course, is a barrier. So that's one major challenge in terms of the digital divide has actually increased a lot across the world, because people who can access education are able to access it through online technology. But those who don't have good data or things like that are getting further behind. So in fact, there's now been some state governments have now started banning online education at the lower classes, because they think that the people who are not able to catch up because of low data connectivity can't really catch up with the people ahead of them. So let them all suffer. But I think the other issue, I think this is something that we have learned as we've been shifting our colleges to an online model, is that the nature of the lecture itself has changed. Now, you cannot say that, we've told all our faculty, you cannot do the standard PowerPoint presentation where you're just droning on for 1 hour on end, because frankly, keeping students' attention is going to be very difficult online, right? So what we said is that what you need to do is shift to a flipped classroom model, which some of you are aware of, but let me just explain a bit more. The student needs to read the content beforehand, then come to classroom. And in the classroom, the lecture is broken up into 5-minute, 10-minute sections. At the end of every section, there's a quiz that comes up, there's a poll, there's an interactive game. Students are shifted into breakout rooms where they can actually work on projects together. The point is a constant flow of stuff happening versus just the students blandly listening to what the lecturer is saying, essentially, right? So the thing is that the biggest barrier has not been technology. The biggest barrier has been getting faculty to start shifting away from a classic continuous lecture model where you have to make things to a model where you have to be more interactive, where you have to engage the students constantly online, ask some questions, randomly pick on someone in Zoom and say, okay, look, what do you think? Try to get them involved, see if people's attention is slacking, and more importantly, trying to make this more interactive. That means you're not a teacher anymore, you're a facilitator. You are facilitating group learning of knowledge. So I think if we are able to sustain this across all institutions, you will see a sea change in education, even if we go back to the normal classroom model where people come to class. If the teachers are able to sustain this change of becoming more facilitators and focusing on group-based learning, I think that would be a major positive change over the long term.
Nice inputs, Akhil sir, very nice inputs. We have to move according to the system wise. So I move to Dr. Sunil Shukla sir. So what's your remarks regarding the current situation, and what are the current major challenges you are facing, and what are the long-term output of that behavior changes? So what's your current views on that, sir? Dr. Sunil Shukla sir, you can put on the mic.
Coming back to your theme of today's discussion regarding the vision of the higher education, I would say that the vision prior to COVID-19 and the vision post-COVID-19, there is going to be significant different. Whatever plans institutions would have made, whatever new courses, they will have to apply their mind afresh. They will have to think that what are the programs that can be organized, that they will have to see. So the nature and the variety of the programs, that is going to be reviewed by institutions. That I see, this is number one observation. Second is, as Mr. Sahani was telling, that it would quite be a challenge to hold the attention of the students in the class. Technology certainly has come to our rescue, whether it is Zoom, WebEx, or several other online platforms that have come. But how do you ensure that all those who are sitting there, they are listening to you, and all those who are listening to you, they are attentive in the class? Though, of course, you can say that there is no guarantee for that even in the face-to-face interaction. But at least you had greater control in the classroom rather than on online mode. Also, I would say that there would be further awareness by higher learning institutions on courses pertaining to health, environmental issue, whether it is in terms of the full-fledged course or some awareness seminars, workshops, that is going to happen. Another requirement which is coming from the student side and maybe even from the faculty side also, it could be, there would be more of counseling and helping them coping up with this problem, with this difficulty, because remember, about 90% of the students worldwide, and the absolute number which I was reading somewhere, it is about 1.5 billion population, 1.5 billion students. They have not been coming to their work, their schools and colleges, huge number. And they have not been on campus for last 3 months, and we never know how long they will be away from this. So that is going to create some sort of psychological discomfort among students and also in the minds of the teachers, facilitators. We have started operating, but the classroom, the campus is not as lively as it used to be when students were around. That has certainly changed. And not only there will be some counseling and the support for students, but even for the teachers.
Well said.
Finally, my take would be that apart from all these, the institutions, particularly non-aided institutions, are going to struggle with the cash flow problem. Because this is going to affect the enrollment, this is going to affect the fee, because we have been reading that some quarters they have been demanding that online education, you cannot have the same tuition fee as in the face-to-face interaction. So sooner or later, probably institutions will have to prepare themselves about managing cash flow. This is my opening remark. Thank you.
Well said, Sunil sir. Cash flow is the major challenge that are going to face by the institutions. So come to the Dr. Ravi Joshi sir. May I know your opinion regarding the major challenges right now facing the higher education institutes and the college in terms of student, faculty, academics, and the revenue cycle? So what's your opinion, sir?
Okay. In terms of, as I concur with Sunil sir, that the first and the foremost thing that is playing on the top of all educators' mind, education providers' mind, is how to keep our flock together. How to have the student acquisition, what we are having now, can we have the same number again, or whether there will be a drastic fall in that, because that is going to determine our future. So therefore, we must face this with the situation that I call it as a three-pronged problem challenges we are going to face it. Number one, it will be an academic challenges. As Sahni sir said, the delivery will be changed from the classroom teaching to the online teaching. The paradigm shift, it is actually from teaching to it will be self-learning. Whenever you are online, you do not assure that you cannot tie a student in the classroom. He has a freedom to move around, walk around. So from teaching, it will be a self-learning process. Number second is, next academic challenge is preparing our faculty to face this. And of course, both of them have enumerated this particular thing. How do a lecturer, how do a teacher convert himself into online facilitator? Because that is not it cannot happen overnight, because years together we've been trained in that fashion, and suddenly changing over, it is going to take some time. That is a second challenge we're going to face. And third is, there will be a social challenges as the acquisition of students is concerned, whether the students are ready to travel to the urban areas who are teamed up with this kind of a COVID situation, whether they would prefer staying in a cities like Pune or Mumbai or any other place to continue for the education. Will there be a fall in that kind of a students coming into the education institutions? That will be a third social challenge we have to address. And the fourth is an administrative challenge. Administrative challenges, when you are converting your classroom, must be virtual station. That means you have to equip your classroom with the cameras so that it can be, this can happen anytime, this can occur anytime. So we must be prepared to face this kind of a challenge. So basically, these are the three things which we are looking for. The first one being, as I said, that keeping the student acquisition strength as high as possible, see that what can be done about it. So these are the challenges which I think all education providers and education institutions are going to face.
Rightly pointed, Dr. Ravi sir. We will come to the solution as part also in the further discussion. First we point out the major challenges. So may I know your opinion, Dr. Sally ma'am? What's your point of views? What you are thinking regarding this situation? What is the major output? Or
Yes, I think if you look at it, there are 3 to 4 major challenges when we are talking about. One is admission. Second is academic processes, what we are trying to set up at the universities or in the classroom. Third one is your placement. That how are we going to ensure that, right? And of course, that the engagement of the students in terms of faculty development. Because when you look at any education system, the role of faculty is very important in terms of delivering. Very rightly, we are discussing about, yes, admission is an issue wherein every university, educational institutes, they all are trying to get the admission done through the digital platform, right? Because we can see everyone is running around the all digital marketing companies and trying to identify the students to come. However, there is a limitation also which we need to understand, that the commute, mobility of the student. Pune being Oxford West, there was always 70% students coming from all over India. That is what was our 10 days. Now, how are we going to really attract them? Why we were doing this very successfully in Pune? The reason is we were always thinking, because when we talk about education, I think there are 2 things which are very important when we talk about classroom education or campus education. It's a very important because online education has a different flavor altogether. Outcome is totally different. And in terms of campus education or classroom education has a different flavor altogether. And what is it? So one is that the kind of culture which we set in the classes, right? The learning culture, the student-centric culture, the academic culture, the research culture, consultancy, mentoring, all those methods, what we try to bring in our classroom plays an important role. Now, while doing all this, we take help of the students, right? Because when you look at the complete setup of the class, you have a diversity, you have learning through collaboration, you have learning through your projects, you have learning through your role plays, games, simulations, all sort of things are happening very successfully. And therefore, generally in India, when you look at it, the student always feels comfortable when teacher comes to him and asks him the question or try to understand what is happening in his mind. Now look at the paradigm shift, look at the total shift because of this disruption, right, which has happened to this particular setup of education in higher, especially in India. Now, when we're doing this, we're talking about respect, we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about trust, we're talking about diversity in class. Now we're moving towards the online platform. Right? So from admission, when we are going to academic inputs, so what is the limitations are? I don't have diversity now in my class. Right? I don't have the kind of respect which I want to teach to my students, that how to understand the other way thought process, what are their thinking, right? How you can expect, how you can have patience. So a lot of managerial, professional things which we teach in class are not going to happen on online. Okay. Now, if we look at it, so what was my role as a faculty or my colleagues' roles as a faculty? We always talked about content delivery. Right now, that's what I'm trying to set up the tone for what I'm trying to make a point over here. So, what is what type of class I have, and what are my habits as a faculty or as a community? Typical habits are there that I am a teacher. I go in class. I do the content delivery. Right. I see to it that the focus is on rather than know why, know how. It's more of delivery. Accept what I am teaching to you. Right. And now here the major what I can say is that the disruption has come, that now I have to see to it that all of them are engaged with me. So I have to see that Samir is also listening to me, Dr. Shukla, what he's thinking about me, what Ravi Joshi is thinking, and how Mr. Shahani is trying to understand my point of view. And if I don't engage them in this learning process, then I am the biggest failure. So now, moving from content delivery, it's more of content creation, right? So it was very easy to go in class, take a book and deliver, or my typical PPTs. Now I need to check it every one, right? There are so many memes which are coming up, right? That how it is happening and teacher is delivering class from home and trying to ask everyone. But when you're going to deal with 120, 90 people, so how are you engaging all of them, right? So can I handle simultaneously my chat box? Can I handle the questions? Can I handle the flipped classroom, which we all are talking about? I think the preparation of faculty is very important. Now, preparation of faculty, sorry, I'm taking time, but now I'm just thinking and trying to explain.
We will discuss each and every point. We will discuss regarding the preparation.
Yes.
Regarding
Here, I'll just close it with this. So one is faculty and second is curricula, right? So curriculum, how the faculty is going to prepare, right? So the curriculum and pedagogy is going to have a major shift, and which has to ensure collaboration, which has to ensure the trust, which has to ensure the respect, and which has to totally see to it that the 100% engagement of the student is in class, right? And that's the major challenges with all of us. And for that, we need a good preparation. What Ravi Joshi sir has said, absolutely right, that now faculty are gearing up to prepare. No one was knowing that Zoomas, how to open the account and then how to call the meetings and ask people to send the link and all. But now it has become a routine, right? So I think we are going on a path, but we need to prepare a lot in terms of creation and faculty development.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Very well pointed out and very well described, ma'am. We will further discuss regarding all the faculty challenges, student challenges, and how they are preparing for their future. So moving on to Dr. Sameer. Dr. Sameer, we have discussed various challenges right now. So is any particular challenge that you find out is also addressed right now? So over to you, Dr. Sameer.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you that you simplified the question this time so that I don't repeat the challenges. But let me focus on one of them. So maybe with it should be good enough if I actually share my screen, because I have something that I can actually directly project for all of you. So I'll just share the screen in a second. Okay, I hope you can see this. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, so what we essentially are saying is that this pattern of 60% of classroom interaction and 40% of work from home scenario, which was prevalent till the COVID actually came into picture. And when we are going in the online mode, this is actually changing. It is flipping itself. Now we have 70% of content which has to be consumed by the learners on their own and which will be at home now. And so content dissemination is happening at home, and we can have a small fraction of live interaction, because it is very difficult to have that kind of interaction, not just because of anything else, but simply because of the other parameters such as availability of bandwidth, attention span, technology, and other things. So this has to be reduced. Now, this is the challenge where you have to send a lot of content in advance to people so that it makes sense to them. They can use it at home, they can learn from it. It could be anytime, anywhere kind of thing. And then you have a very small fraction with you where you can actually interact with them. So I have actually focusing on the same thing, that what faculties can actually do. So I just go to one particular point so that I will not, so sorry. Yeah, so I just have 6 points to explain, and then if required, I can come back on that. So the first point I want to make is that teachers should definitely look for curation before creation, because creation is happening in abundance and in all directions and all sides, and it is not helping. So we need to understand, by the way, the word curation. It is not simply putting up all the videos in one folder and saying that, okay, watch all these videos. That is not curation. That is just collection. Curation has a step ahead. And if you look at museums, if you look at exhibitions, curated museums, then you understand the importance that it is very well crafted. So each object is placed to each other after determining the context between the two. So this is very important, that whatever you curate for others, have you actually thought about the context? before you giving out that content. And I don't have to really read out the list from where can you curate content. You have OER Commons, you have everything. If you want Indian things, you have NPTEL, you have Swayam, you can do curation. The second and the important thing, like everyone said, that we definitely cannot go 1 hour long videos with PowerPoints now. So keeping video short is the key. But one more addition to that I would like to say here is that if we add a reflection spot in between. So what is the reflection spot? So at a point in a video, you actually pause and ask people a question about whether or not this is the particular concept that we were discussing about, and what is your reflection about. It's not a question, like this is not a reflection spot. If I stop and say, are you understanding everything? That's not a reflection spot. So reflection spot is exactly about the topic which was being discussed and a question regarding that. That's called a reflection spot. I'll come to detail of that later, but I'm just going ahead. The second principle says that you have to have a practice opportunity for people to get immediate and frequent feedback. Because after you watch some content, if you actually don't do anything, then it is going in the drain and it is not giving you a chance to assimilate that. Therefore, learning by doing is the second principle that I want to talk about. The third one is an option for providing diverse resources to cater to the students. Your class is full of diversity and you have to interact with them. Therefore, don't just give additional reading material as a long list of things. All of us were students, and I'm sure that absolutely less number of people could actually go through all the content which was given at the end of the course called as reading material. We could hardly go beyond 2 or 3 bullets which were given there. How do we do that? The way to do
Dr.
it.
Sameer, can you could
Sorry.
be quick because we have less time. We have very much speaking.
Yeah, sorry. So this is the third one where you can have actual extension resources which are curated so that they help out in doing that. So I think I'll stop here and I will open the thing, and when I come back, maybe I can complete the rest of the things.
No, yes, you can complete after the rest of that. We have some other speakers also to other topics we have to cater right now.
Yeah. So the fifth principle is about the experience interaction. I call it discussions is not just about talking to each other. It has to be an experience interaction. And the way we have solved it is that by creating a focus question around the discussion. So it is not just, so creating a WhatsApp group doesn't solve the problem. It's not that, okay, we have now started a group so people can interact. Unless you feed that group with a focus question about whatever was covered in the week, probably you will not have fruitful discussion. So we call it as a focus question based discussion groups. So that is, we call it learner experience interaction.
Thanks, Dr. Sameer. Thanks for your inputs. I come back to the Dr. Sunil Shukla, sir. As per we have seen the challenges regarding the academics faculties. So overviewing all the scenarios right now, can traditional classroom overcome the virtual classroom? Virtual classroom right now has taken overlaps. We are shifting the momentum toward the virtual classroom. Can it be done? Can virtual classroom be a new normal? What's your point, sir?
It seems, though there would be qualitative difference between the two, virtual classroom and conventional classroom. But at least for some time, at least for a year or so, or maybe a little longer than a year, we'll have to prepare ourselves to either manage with limited students in a classroom, maybe about 20 or so physically, or maybe the virtual classroom, or maybe a combination of those. We'll have to have a hybrid model. And we will have to change our methodology also. Right now, I mean, when we all started conducting online classes, there were teachers who were simply uploading their PPT or PDF files, thinking that this is online, but it is not online. This is digitization of your knowledge repository, but this is not the digital transmission. So this has to be, it has to be supplemented or complemented by variety of other instruments, including videos, including interactions, including exercises, all that which can be converted. That will have to be done. In our case, a little more challenging because what we consider entrepreneurship is a state of mind. And it is not simply sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing skills of the government or the financial institutions. The person has to assess himself or herself and the opportunity emanating, and then there has to be a matchmaking between the person, the promoter of a business, and the enterprise. So it is a little more difficult, but my colleagues, they have been doing it. They have been doing it very successfully. Their response has been great, and I believe that we'll be able to soon learn the tricks of the to normalcy. We are preparing ourselves.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Sunkar, sir. A positive vibes come from your side. That's great. And overcome to Dr. Akhil Sani, sir. My question to you, sir, that we have invested on the infrastructure before COVID very heavily on the first. We didn't think about IT infrastructure more. That we can equip our faculty more. We can reskill the faculty with the IT-enabled architectures, such kind of thing. So, what the behavior change? What the right now the change? What the industry have to think? Or the university and the college should follow the system that you suggest? What the best practice right now? The universities and the colleges should follow regarding the infrastructure and the IT infrastructure. Unmute. Akhil sir, you can unmute your mic.
Sorry about that. Sorry. So assuming that most of us who run higher education institutions are looking to make our students employable, right? That means that they need to work very well in a corporate environment that will be there post-COVID lockdown, right? And I think it's quite clear that in spite of offices open up, a lot of them are going to focus on work from home. In fact, you now have Infosys keeping 50% of their employees at home even after COVID over the long term. So the thing is that our students will have to start understanding how to work 24/7 with technology, going for face-to-face, working from home and in different environments. In fact, the office may just be a coffee shop where you're working out or working in a co-working space. Now, the thing is that when you look at college infrastructure, typical college infrastructure is set up as classrooms. You have like, let's say 30 to 50 students sitting in chairs facing the front, and you have the teacher standing on a podium and do the PowerPoint, the standard, gyan that we used to give earlier. Now, when you look at the corporate environment means it's more work related based on self-work. That means that the boss, or let's say the manager, gives them, let's say, a project to do, or let's say a problem to solve. And there's no textbook, there's no exam, there's no, let's say, instructions on how to do it. It's more like, here's a problem, use your brains, go on Google, search on what's happening, use your own understanding and come up with a solution to the problem. Now, the thing is there's no defined solution to the problem. You may come up with a solution in one group, which may be different from a solution in another group. There could be just two different ways of achieving the problem. So when I look at college infrastructure, I would actually say that why not look at breaking up classrooms into smaller project rooms, breakout rooms? Why not look at becoming like, let's say, a co-working space? Why do you have one class and another class separate? Why can't you all be in an open environment where you can collaborate? Why does, let's say, somebody who is studying physics have to be separate from someone who's studying chemistry? There may be correlations or, let's say, communications they can do together, like you see in a co-working space, where through collaboration come up with better solutions to the problems. So I would say that if you look at what the new corporate environment is going to look like over the next 20, 15 years, you should start looking at finding a way to mirror the college environment to look like that. That means do away with exams, do away with a lot of that classic memorization-based learning, and understand that your job basically is to facilitate peer learning or getting students to actually understand how to learn themselves. Again, like it's done in corporates. So I would say that if you're able to understand the best of breed of corporates, and you can incorporate that same infrastructure in your own college in terms of technology and the way that the rooms are set up, I think you're already well on your way to getting your kids to be employable, way beyond most of the other classic colleges would be.
Thank you, Akhil sir, for highlighting the points regarding the infrastructure and the IT skilling the teachers. Coming to the Dr. Ravi Joshi sir, right now the situation for the students is like a chaos. They are many students are thinking that what is the future ahead. So what the best practices you are following in your institutes to gain the trust of the students that the things will be okay, we will make sure that each and everything will be good and will be in the lineup. So what the best practice and innovation initiative you are taking in your institutes right now? Hello. Ravi sir, Dr. Ravi sir, are you getting my voice? Might be his internet connection has been lost, I think. May I know your inputs, Dr. Saili ma'am, regarding the students' welfare and regarding the students, what the initiative you are taking for the academics as well as other mental, social health wings?
I think the immediately the kind of activities what we have started is these webinars, right? We have started inviting various resource persons. They are coming, they are taking the classes. We have started online classes. I think the almost a week is completed now. So the engagement of the student in terms of from home, right? Because that is very essential, and that we started creating certain assignments, projects, right, through which they are learning. As rightly said, that the lot of content is available on the YouTube, or ebooks are available. So the whole activity has gone, classroom activity has been transferred on the online platform now. And that's how the student engagement is happening. Fortunately, yes, we are from Pune, so infrastructure is not a major issue for us, right? So because though we have started from campus and faculties are going in campus, they are conducting sessions from the classrooms and their rooms also. But at the same time, we are also trying to take care of the student, those who are coming from the rural area. And initial discussions, what we started with is that the infrastructure and is a major issue right now in terms of internet, bandwidth, availability of the handset, right? Data, that is a major challenge which students are facing. But then we have ensured that the classrooms are recorded and those sessions are being again released for the student. In the meantime, we had a tie-up with the Coursera has given us support, and Coursera has given, last time we had a very the interaction with the managing director of Coursera from India, and he gave us the licenses. So what we have done, we have asked all our students to register on that, and now they are doing their the certificate programs over there. So students have picked up. When I have looked at the dashboard, the students are also very interested. You know, we feel like students, they don't learn generally. We feel like that, but then they went for the Coursera. They have selected wonderful organizations, universities, Ivy League universities. Few people have taken Georgia Tech, few people have taken MIT, right, or the Orlando, and they picked up those courses and they are doing it very successfully. So now what we are going to do, we will be giving them a certificate in campus once they submit their Coursera completion certificate. So this is how we have engaged. MOOCs is available. NPTEL is available. You know, the government has created a wonderful platforms for learning of the students. I have done many, in fact, the videos with EMRC, right? Almost 60 to 70 videos are being done at Pune campus. Okay, so that also really helped us a lot. You know, Swayam, Vyas, right? Those are also very interesting. And I think those kind of stuff, we are doing it very smartly. We are using it. And faculties are also now, they are also getting Coursera certification. And that has created a wonderful transformation in our campus, because now they have realized how to deliver the programs, right? Because they have gone through that certification process. So that has helped the faculty. So faculty and students both are now on one platform. So they know that how this program is to be run successfully.
That's
So
a nice initiative, Dr. Salim.
Initiatives we have done. Thank you.
That's a nice initiative. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your inputs. And coming to Dr. Ravi, sir, are you getting my voice, sir?
Yeah, now I'm getting your voice.
Sir, we have discussed about the challenges regarding the placement and admissions. So what are the best practices you are following to coping the situation, to tackling this situation? So how you are seeing this situation and what the best initiative you have taken in your institutes.
Yeah, as I said, the skilling of the students, even during the lockdown period, so-called, it was taken positively. The response of the faculty was positive, so that, as madam suggested, that they have taken to the new kind of a delivery system positively and delivering those kind of a things. So we are skilling the students during that, and even the placement as such, the companies were interviewed, they interviewed the students online also, and there was quite a bit of positivity in their response. The students were, as I said, happy to go through the situation, and we have done well in that part as well. And as far as the
Regarding
uh,
regarding the revenue cycle, sir, you have discussed the challenges. So what the major steps you are taking for this to regarding the revenues streams you have to share that.
Yeah.
Hello, Ravi sir, you are getting my voice?
The revenue cycle, that is one that is enabling the students. Yeah, I'm getting your voice, but it is. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Regarding the revenue cycle, as I said, we're talking about the well-resourced institutions. So we come under that. This thing, we have a sugar factories supporting us. So therefore, for example, especially for the post-COVID situation, we are preparing our campuses to receive the students well as well. As I said, the great sanitization process is in process. We are getting the buildings sanitized, and we're getting the buses sanitized, and we're manufacturing our own sanitization so that the tunnels can be installed in the campus when the students come to this. So basically, we're addressing the social problem when the students come back to the hostel, when they come back, the actual learning takes place. One thing is that, yes, this online learning we're talking about, we are focusing on, it has come to stay, but it cannot altogether replace the classroom situation. We have to accept that it is a period. It may be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. We are going to come back to the original situation. It may not be absolutely original. The new normal may be different. Maybe 20, 30% we may be delivering online. But I think so 60% will come back to, will adjust it to the situation, and will go on as per our normal routine. But as I said, having said that, we must be prepared to deliver this online and keep on updating ourselves so that as in time, when time arises, we should be prepared to deliver. So placements, yes, it is going on, although the hiring or the recruitment, as madam has suggested, I said, we are making our students to going more and more for a self-learning online courses, which will be preparing them to tackle the challenges which are going to face. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi sir. Overcoming to Dr. Samir sir, the same question that I asked to Dr. Sunil sir, is virtual education is the new normal? Can it overcome the traditional classroom system? What's your views on that?
Yeah. So I am reminded of a couple of forwards that I received over WhatsApp these days. And one of the sentences which just really struck me is that whether or not, whether COVID-19 will kill us or not, I don't know, but the online webinars will definitely kill me, kind of. So this is overwhelming right now, actually speaking. And the reason is because that as all of us, we are not even aware of how to learn in a web-based mode. So how to be present there, how to interact, how to get the things from there. Is it a served restaurant where things are served, or is it a la carte restaurant where you can pick up whatever you want? So this difference has to be understood quite well, first of all. Once you get that, I think, therefore, I strongly recommend that teachers' training has to be on the primary thing. And why I say that also, I agree with Dr. Ravi Joshi sir, that it is not a permanent change. It is a phase that it will pass. But my submission is that even if this will pass, for example, after 6 months, we come back to normal. Now, if we have learned a lesson that 1 hour long lectures are boring, and we should not give those, even we have a classroom of 1 hour, we should have a chunk delivery If that message goes to the teachers because of this phase, I think we have learned a lot of lessons from this. Or we decide that learning by doing has to happen after every session, and within that 5-minute capsule, whatever knowledge capsule, whatever we call it, after every such conceptual talk, if we have a learning by doing activity, if that pattern is imbibed by teachers, I think this phase has taught us a lot of things in that case. Because if this did not happen, then people were anyway going ahead with their 1 hour lectures in the classroom, irrespective of whether people were listening or sleeping on the other side. So that's I think one of the things that is a takeaway from this phase.
Thanks, Dr. Samir. Thank you very much for your inputs. Coming to the Dr. Akhil Sani, sir, my question is that what behavior change you are looking forward for the coming future, and is Indian colleges are really equipped to to overcome these changes? So what the behavior changes you have been overcoming in the students?
So interestingly, Charles Darwin has always been misquoted. People think that he says the survival of the fittest will survive. Actually, what he said was that the creatures that adapt the most to change will always survive. So you can't really say that, let's say, even colleges or let's say schools or let's say companies, it's the ones that will change to come up with a new behavioral change to adapt quickly are the ones who survive. The ones who don't adapt will fall way behind. So you can't say that they are all adaptable or they're all not going to change. The point being is that it's really up to each and every one of us as college leaders, college management to say that keep track of what's happening in the environment. What are students saying? What are employers saying? Because at the end of the day, our primary role is to make sure our kids get great careers. Now, if the requirement for that career keeps on changing, adoption of technology, adoption of methods of teaching, as what somebody said, is that, okay, 2021, we won't be locked down anymore, right? That doesn't mean that you will continue doing the same old thing and go back to our old bad habits of chalk and talk teaching, right? The thing is that there has been an openness of new methods of doing things. So therefore, we as college leaders have to adapt. So out of, let's say, the hundreds of colleges out there in India, some will survive, some may not, and some will just keep on going. Like with companies, I think creative disruption is something that I think is something we have to adapt in our education industry, which has not been affecting us so far. Now we actually now being disrupted, I think more proactively. So I think let's just accept the disruption, adapt, and I'm sure hopefully next year, if we have this webinar or there's another method of maybe a live session with you guys, I'm sure we'll have different ideas, but I'm sure we've learned over the last year to adapt to the new market environment. Yeah.
100%, sir. We are used to be a physical meeting. Right now, we are coming to the webinar as a virtual meeting right now.
Yeah. I think Dr. Samir is also right that too many webinars.
Coming to the Dr. Sunil Sikla, sir, your views regarding the behavior change in the coming future with the faculties, in the students, in the academicians, how you are looking forward, sir?
I think behavioral change will surely take place. We are all human beings. You might have experienced that after post-lockdown, when you have resumed offices, there would be a lot of care being given by various colleagues or the care that as an institution you might have taken. What Dr. Joshi was telling, that sanitization program and all these things that will have to be done. So there would be certain apprehensions, and in response to those apprehensions, we will have to undertake certain measures. In the classroom also, it's no longer sitting closely, maybe having the so-called social distancing even in the classroom that we are going to experience. But more than that, what I believe that the program offerings are going to change. I raised the issue of cash flow. I'm glad that no other panelists asked about that. It seems they are very, very comfortable about cash flow. But I believe that institutions will have to look into that. It's a very, very important aspect. And if admission is going to be affected, because COVID came at the time of admissions only, when a lot of institutions had already advertised, and somehow admission has taken a backseat. So admission, cash flow, revenue, that would be affected. In view of that, we will have to respond differently. We'll have to do a lot of MDPs. some MDPs which would be for masses, maybe without any fee or some commitment fee, 50 rupees, 20 rupees, 100 rupees, where we can attract large number of people. A short duration, 1 hour, 2 hour kind of things. But we will have to have also some outcome-based programs. And for that, we will have to either tie up with the institutions like Coursera or others where we can have specialized knowledge and the learners can directly benefit from that. So that learning behavior outside the classroom, that is going to change. Probably faculty also will have to equip himself or herself for devising technological modes, technological tools and innovations in technological pedagogy. I think that is going to change. So far students are concerned, I believe that since we teach entrepreneurship and we do not have that placement related focus in the program, we prepare our students to launch their own enterprises. So probably for some time they will have to also look at working and gaining experience in their own enterprises if they have any. Most of our students have some family businesses. Those who do not have, they will also have to look at learning or collecting information, market survey in close proximity. So those things are certainly going to change, which I believe, and ultimately it will benefit all of us because we have very quickly we have adopted to this online mode of teaching. Webinar, of course, what Dr. Samir was referring to, but we will be able to switch to this. I think that certainly is going to help and add to our knowledge and comfort and confidence, ultimately benefiting the institutions. So there are quite a positive side in it, I would say. Yes.
Well said, sir. Well said. We talk about the entrepreneurship also. Right now, entrepreneurship is gaining momentum also. But there is some challenges. Right now, the situation is hard, but they are gaining momentum. Coming to Dr. Ravi Joshi, sir, your views regarding the behavior change and their future aspects, how things will respond in the future due to this COVID-19 situation?
As you said, the thing definitely there will be a change when the way we are going to respond. If the teaching online, it becomes a part of the curriculum, maybe 20%, 30%, then we have to look at the manpower planning of the faculty also. You may not require so many faculty, then we have to look at it, whether the teacher-student ratio, which is normally designed, keeping in mind the direct classroom engagement, whether it is applicable, how it can be shaped to suit the online requirement of a teaching faculty. That thing we have to have a look at it. And second thing is redesigning our places. Probably once the social distancing is become an aspect in the campus, college campus, so therefore redesigning of the spaces is also equally important. We may not know, the AICT may come up with the new handbook that the norms telling that this should be the distance, this should be the class strength, this should be the distance between the benches. So all these things are going to play a major role in the days to come. Although, as I said, this COVID is a passing phase is there, but the effect it is going to leave on us, it is a long-standing effect. So we are looking at these point of view, and we have to equip ourselves, change ourselves, even physically also. The physical infrastructure, our electronic infrastructure, so that you can equip the classrooms. It can be treated in both the ways, either direct teaching or it is online teaching. So therefore, in this way, we have to prepare ourselves, and I think the colleges across India, as I said, it should be multidisciplinary campuses. The institute should come together and function in one umbrella, so that the optimization of infrastructure, the optimization of other facilities can be attained, so that it will help in maintaining the norms and conditions which were maybe proposed in the due course of time, keeping in mind the COVID-19 situation. Yeah, thank you, Abhishek.
Hello. Samir sir, your inputs regarding the same questions for the behavior change and the future aspects and what the plans we can look forward for that.
Yeah, unlike other dignitaries on the panel, I'm not really interacting with the large scale institute. So, but I work in the area of teacher training mostly. Therefore, most of my pointers are from that side actually. So
This is important.
yes. So allow me to just finish the last two slides which I was not able to, so that it will be easy for me to talk about it. I am just now. Oh, it has disabled me.
Yes.
Can you enable that?
You can enable, but quick it, because we have only 5 minutes left out.
Oh, then let it be. I think I can just.
No,
go ahead.
Dr. Samir, you can show us the slide.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So this is where I was, where I left actually. So the point I wanted to say was that it is important now that we can respond to the student action in a timely and appropriate manner. Because now with digital things, we actually have the facility to do that. And this makes a larger impact. And we have analytics to help us now, which was not the case earlier on, because it was all facial recognition things. When we were in the class and we were interacting with students. But with the online things, we are having a lot more control over it. And therefore, I just want to show that this is the model that we are using to create all these things, what I was talking about, where we call it the learner-centric MOOC model, LCM model, and we have a website for that. So people who are interested can go there, and we explain how you can actually morph your elements of e-content to suit the requirements of the current scenario. And that change in the teacher's attitude is, I think, what will decide not just during the COVID period, but also post-COVID, how you approach the problem of student engagement, whether it is in face-to-face or is it in an online mode. So I suppose that this is the need of the hour to address the faculty development at a very crucial juncture. So that's what my point was.
Thanks, Samir. Thank you, Dr. Samir. You can stop the screen sharing right now.
Yeah.
Now we are coming to the Dr. Akhil Sahni, sir. We are in the concluding the session. So we need some reconstructive and a reshaping message to all our audience to how to be positive and how do we see the bright future. So over to you, Dr. Akhil Sahni, sir.
Well, it's very simple. The thing is that we are living in strange times in 2020, but we're also living in strange times in 2019 and also in 2018 and every year, there's going to be something disrupting you. Every year subsequent to that, there'll be something disrupting you. Now, the question is, and it's all a matter of attitude. The thing is that the incidents will not change. Your attitude to the incidents will change. It's up to you. Will you succeed and say, okay, there's actually something called the growth mindset, which some of you may be familiar with, which talks about the idea to say that every new challenge that comes to you or comes your way is basically a new thing for you to overcome and develop yourself further. Now, if you adopt the growth mindset in your life and say, look, every new situation, every new challenge is basically a great opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to grow. Trust me, you will succeed no matter what, and you probably would be one of the few foremost educationists in India if you adopt that mindset. So it's really up to the individual. It's not the environment, it's you individually. That's all that makes a difference.
Thanks, Dr. Sir. Thank you, Akhil, sir, regarding all about its positive attitude that you have to follow. And Dr. Sunil, sir, your concluding remark regarding the reconstructive, reshaping, and the positive future and the bright future aspects.
I teach entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are highly optimistic people, and so are entrepreneurship teachers. I see a lot of possibilities amidst the challenge. Every challenge provides some opportunity. And you know that until the COVID occurred, I didn't know even that there is something called Zoom that existed. WebEx, of course, we were using. Yeah. And almost every day a new platform is emerging. Yesterday I was doing some Air Meet and earlier GoToMeet and Google Duo. So many platforms have come. This is an entrepreneurial response that is there. So there are opportunities. The government also has announced, that Atmanirbhar Bharat package, and I think there is a lot for entrepreneurs in MSME sector, in agro and fruit processing opportunities are there, fisheries and mines product there are there. There is a lot that we can do for street vendors. There are opportunities for healthcare, yoga, meditation kind of classes, courses. Online, of course, is a new reality. So I would say that let us look at the brighter side of this, that what this challenge has provided and how can we add value to the society to something with my knowledge and experience. This should be our take, and our students fortunately have responded to that, and many of them, those who could, they have launched their products. In first month itself, we trained our micro entrepreneurs, those who were otherwise making products like bags, etc. They started making masks, certified masks, about 5 lakh masks we prepared, we produced in the first month itself. Our entrepreneurs, students, they have been producing sanitization and other things for that. I think there are opportunities. I would say that one of our students recently, she's still a student. She has certified, she has procured and produced a very different kind of N99 mask. For that, she got certificate from the Government of India and ATIRA and other laboratories also. And she's going on the mass production kind of thing. So there are opportunities. I would say that this has taught us many lessons. Probably it would be useful for us in some ways or other.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil sir. Positive warrior attitude should be there in each and every person. Thank you, Sunil sir. Coming to the Dr. Ravi Joshi sir, your concluding remarks regarding the reshaping the future in the most brighter and the positive way.
Yeah, it is because one of the hallmarks of our Indian culture is adaptability. Whatever the situation is, whatever the challenges are there, we have shown that we can emerge from that challenge and succeed because we have a positive mindset. That is what is being taught to us through our culture. So therefore, I'm very sure, although there may be some hiccups, everybody will fight off this particular COVID-19 and emerge, including the education institutions. They'll adapt to the changing circumstances very fast. It may take a little time, but definitely they are positive, and definitely there will be a bright picture when that is emerging out of this particular situation. I'm very sure of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi sir. And Dr. Sally ma'am, your concluding remarks regarding the future prospect and the brighter side of.
Yeah. Thank you so much. One thing is that every situation teaches you many things, and one has to learn from those experiences and grow. Right? We cannot stop growing and stop learning. And during this particular situation, I think that's an immense opportunity to update ourselves. If you look at it, learning and development will happen more rather than maybe we'll not be able to go into the factories to produce the products, but then learning and development is a great opportunity for everyone, right from students to the employees. Now they can utilize, they can invest this time in learning new things. There are so many platforms available, so let us explore those. So much of information is available. Let us pick up those which we are not able to. Let us develop new skills, right, so that you can go back to the work and you can perform better than the earlier days, I think. And that is what we should look at it and take the challenge in a right spirit.
Thank you, Dr. Sally ma'am. Learning never stops. Coming to Dr. Samir, your remarks, your concluding remarks. Can you unmute? Dr. Samir, can you unmute your?
Yeah, I'll stick to the faculty development domain again, because a faculty change will definitely inspire 60 more minds. And it was the need of the hour that faculty definitely changed the way they have been delivering. So the facilitator point of view is emerging very strongly now, which Mr. Shahani started off saying. This has come handy like never before now, because just now people have realized that this is going to be very useful for us, and now frantically searching for content which can be used and given out to students in order to do that. The point I am saying is that we should also think from the learner's perspective, that when I try to make my 1 hour most interactive when I am doing my webinar or whatever, am I considering that this poor fellow on the other side, she must be sitting there for 4 hours continuously? And whenever you just switch off your camera and go out for even a water break, it is marked as absent. So that is the problem that people are having. So my point of view is that it has to be in a very flexible mode now, that learners need not be all the time connected with you over the internet. That's a very foolish expectation to have. What we need to do is that we need to understand the first slide which I showed, that we have to understand that it has going from 70% of self-learning and only 30% of contact hours, which will be, that 30% also is very high. We can reduce that lesser and lesser and allow them to interact with each other more with a focus question given to them. I think this will make learning as an enjoyable practice rather than a compulsion and as a very imposed factor on them. So I think I would go with that.
Thanks, Dr. Sameer. Interactive and the enjoyable learning are the basic outcomes. By this, all the panelists, we are closing the session. Thank you for very much for joining this higher and technical virtual conclave. And I thanks all the audience who have joined us, who has listened us, and comment on the chat box. We have QA. We have a question in the QA section also. We will mail all your questions to the dignitaries so that you can connect them offline also. If you have any situation, if you have any questions, you can connect to all our panelists via mail, via call also, via WhatsApp. They all are digitally available. So there's a brighter and the positive aspects of higher education. And by this, we conclude our session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Akhil Sani sir. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Joshi sir, Dr. Sally ma'am, Dr. Sameer, and Dr. Sunil Shukla. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to moderator as well.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
to the
Thank you.
moderator. Thank you, Abhishek.